Deer flies. In the summer of 1939, 12-year-old Donn Fendler traveled to Maine with his family and set out to climb Mount Katahdin with his father, his brother, and the son of a local guide. After reaching the summit, worsening weather and thick fog descended over the mountain. Somewhere near the summit, Donn became separated from the others. He tried to find his way back, but instead descended from Katahdin into the enormous wilderness below. For the next 9 days, Donn was completely alone. He had no food or survival equipment, and along the way, he lost his shoes and pants. He survived on wild berries and whatever he could find while enduring cold, exhaustion, and relentless insects. Meanwhile, one of the largest searches in Maine history was underway. Hundreds of people searched the mountain and surrounding wilderness, but there was no sign of Donn. Then, 9 days after he disappeared, Donn stumbled out of the wilderness at Lunksoos camps along the East Branch of the Penobscot River. He had traveled dozens of miles through some of the most rugged and remote country in Maine. His survival captured national attention, and his story was later immortalized in the book Lost on a Mountain in Maine. More than 8 decades later, I set out to retrace his journey, following the route Donn is believed to have taken from Katahdin to Lunksoos. Alright, here we are, Hunt Trail. The rangers pushed me through to the front of the line and let me through right away this morning, even though I didn't have a trailhead pass, because they knew I was doing this trip and they were really supportive, so that was really nice. I talked to someone named Pam at the gate and she was amazing. So yeah, Josie just dropped me off and it's about just before 7 a.m. heading up Hunt. We got in really late last night, about midnight, to the Penobscot Outdoor Center where we camped out for the night, and I got just under 4 hours of sleep. So today is gonna be a challenging day, but I'm up for it. Gotta do what you gotta do. Coffee helps too. Had a lot of that. Donn Fendler's story is one that I've known for years. Like a lot of people who grew up in Maine, Lost on a Mountain in Maine was a story I was familiar with long before I ever thought about retracing it. The more I learned about Donn's ordeal, the more I found myself wondering what his journey actually looked like and felt like on the ground. It's one thing to look at a map and trace a route from Katahdin to Lunksoos. It's another thing entirely to imagine a 12-year-old boy, alone and lost, trying to make his way through this country in 1939. I wanted to see the places Donn described. I wanted to follow some of the old trails and tote roads that existed in his time, cross the same streams, and travel through some of the same wilderness that he did. Of course, I knew I couldn't recreate Donn's experience, and that wasn't really the point. I had modern equipment, food, navigation, and the benefit of knowing where I was going. I simply wanted to experience the landscape for myself and hopefully come away with a better understanding of what Donn went through. Planning the trip also required permission from both Baxter State Park and Katahdin Woods and Waters, since portions of the route would take me away from established trails. With their approval, I was able to put together a route that would follow Donn's journey as closely as I reasonably could. And on July 25th, Maine's Donn Fendler Day, I set out from Katahdin Stream to see what I would find along the way.
All right, so just got off the summit and now heading down towards Saddle Trail and on the Northwest Basin Trail. I'm not going to be wandering across tablelands like Donn Fendler did, because that would require going off the designated trail and would risk me stepping on lots of fragile alpine vegetation. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I have descended off of Baxter Peak, which is right up there, and now at where the Saddle Trail goes down towards Chimney Pond. So at this point in Donn's story, he ended up here because he came down towards Tablelands when he separated from his party, and then he came around and wandered over here towards the Saddle Trail, and thinking he was still going in the correct direction, but obviously going in the opposite direction. He got to this point where he saw a post, much like you see right here with the trail sign on it, and the post was a trail marker of sorts, and it had a really it had like a mark on it that he noticed, a distinct looking mark. So at this point he keeps wandering, and he ends up wandering out here and does a circle and somehow ends up back at the same post that he saw, because he recognized that distinct looking mark on the post. And that was a little bit discouraging for him, I think. But it's also at this point in the story where the clouds and the fog parted temporarily, and he caught a view of Chimney Pond, which is right down here. At that point, he continued wandering in this direction towards what's now Northwest Basin Trail, and continued to get himself deeper and deeper into the wilderness. Alright, coming up on an intersection to Hamlin Ridge Trail. Alright, 7.7 miles to Russell Pond Campground. You can see in the middle of the trail there's the plant life, the alpine vegetation is still growing pretty well, and you don't really have that worn path that you have on a lot of the other heavily traveled trails. It's kind of neat, you know, just adds kind of a more of a wild touch to it than running into some of these alpine cranberries. These are these aren't as ripe as they could be, but let's give it a shot. Yeah, a little dry. You still have a ways to go. Alright, so somewhere around here that, you know, today's existing trail kind of heads down that way, and it is pretty steep going down, but Fendler likely just kept going straight to the end and down through the pucker brush as they describe it. I will not be doing that just because I gotta stay on the designated trails so I don't stomp the alpine vegetation. I'm not too sad about that either, because sounds like a lot of suffering. It would be an absolute nightmare trying to get through these crummels. Absolute nightmare. Yeah, Fendler did describe navigating through large areas of loose boulders, and you know, I mean, this is a pretty good example of what he probably ran into. And yeah, this is really a place that you don't want to lose your footing, fall down and injure yourself. Talk about remote. Help would be hours away. Not many people hike this trail. I know I said that already, but these rocks are like really slippery and moss covered. The brush is really grown in. I mean, not the worst I've ever seen, but you can just tell. It's very few people come through here. Whoa. Ugh. See? Ugh. I'm okay. But I gotta watch my step because these rocks are really slippery. Can't wrap my head around 12-year-old kid bushwhacking through this. Whew. Man, that was steep. My knees are feeling it. Well, it was somewhere around here, roughly, that Fendler found or saw trout in the river, in the stream. And unfortunately, could not catch one, nor did he have a means of cooking it, and didn't seem too into the idea of eating raw fish. I don't know. I think if it was me, I probably would take my chances having some sushi. But anyways, awful difficult to catch them with your hand, I would think. Let me get some water. Got this mini water filter Sawyer squeeze that goes on top of my bottle. Just found an old crosscut saw blade here. Chanterelles. Have some with my dinner. I got a good piece of chaga here. Check that out. So I thought I was staying in a lean-to tonight, and when I got here and checked in with the ranger, she said they had me down for a tent site, which is fine, except I didn't bring a tent, which is also fine, because I do have a bivvy, but I said I could have sworn I had booked a lean-to, and well, all the lean-tos are full, and so she said I could sleep in the bunkhouse. So, I'm not exactly roughing it tonight, but it's okay with me. I don't mind. Let's check out the inside. Pretty nice. A lot like the chimney pond cabin. But yeah, I'm set up in here, and I guess there's only 2 other people in here tonight, so I'll probably get that room to myself, and I'll end up in there.
So far, I'd spent the entire day traveling on established trails, but somewhere beyond Russell Pond was the part of this trip that I'd been looking forward to the most. The next morning, I would leave the trail behind and begin searching for a route through the woods that hadn't been regularly traveled in generations.
Okay, I had a pretty good night last night. I slept better than or longer anyway, than I did the night before. I got less than 3 hours of sleep, or less than 4 hours of sleep on Friday night, so I definitely feel more rested today than I did this time yesterday. But I'm heading to Grand Falls right now, and after that it's just navigating along the Wassataquoik stream and bushwhacking today, so I'm expecting that to be challenging. And so I got an early start. Started at about 6:45 this morning, and yeah, I'm making my way. We'll see how the day goes. There you have it. This is the end. This is Grand Falls, the dead end. So from here out, or at least the next 8 miles or so, it's going to be all bushwhacking. What have I gotten myself into? Okay, I'm heading into the bushwhacking portion of the trip now, and I'm going to be honest, this looks really brutal, really tough. I don't even know where to begin because I'm surrounded by giant boulders and I need to find a way around them. It's pretty simple, just gonna follow Wassataquoik stream, but there's a lot of obstacles in the way. So, all right. Let's try to figure this out. All right. All right, got around that mess of boulders, climbed up the embankment, and I'm on my way now. Following a little game trail right here. This way. I can't believe Donn Fendler did this with no shoes. This is the portion of the trip where I especially need to be careful, watch every step, take my time, because an injury here would be particularly worse than on a established trail, because getting to me would be so difficult and it would take so long. So I'm just going to take my time and put one foot in front of the other and play it safe.
This is definitely a path. Game trail perhaps, but I wonder, because these rocks are piled up on each side, so I don't know if this is the remnants of the tote road. A fellow on Facebook who commented on my trip, who said he'd done the same thing back in the early 2000s, said that the tote road is still fairly discernible. So I am expecting to find it if I haven't yet, but this just has to be humans were here at some point, because piles of rocks on each side and a nice warm path, which is only used by game at this point, but it is just, it totally looks like it used to be a road. Glad I wore pants. Old metal. I'm in the area of Old City. Probably some bear poop. There's a good pile of moose poop. Mm-hmm.
the old road right here. You can still see ruts in the ground. Here's an old bucket. That a tree grew up through the handle. Alright, I reckon I've found some old telephone wire. And Fendler saw this when he was out and following the tote road, and that gave him some hope. And yeah, he followed that out. Pretty cool. I was hoping I would find this. Hang it back on that branch there. This is a huge white pine. That is at least 4 feet in diameter right there. Get under that tree. These little guys, deer flies, these are a big pain out here, and Donn got ambushed by them the whole time. When he came out of the woods, he was covered in bug bites. This one lost the battle, though. Yeah, the old road is really defined right here, going up this hill. Look how much the rocks are all piled up on the side. Yeah. Pretty neat. I am getting swarmed by these deer flies. I can't even tell you how many I've killed today. Can't get 1 minute apiece. I can't get enough water today. I think I've already drank close to 3 liters, and it's 11:48 a.m. Now that is definitely some bear poop. Lots of berries. It's pretty fresh. Well, hope I don't cross paths with the bear. That's interesting. These rocks are overturned. Pretty fresh. What kind of animal is strong enough to do that? Spam. Another bucket. I'm close to Orin Falls, and I just came up on this old fire ring with a grate and coffee pot, cook pot. Been out here for quite a while. I'm gonna cross now because this is about the end of the bushwhack. I'm gonna go check it out down here. Whoa. This big rock is moving. Oh. The last spot was not a good place to cross. And this really isn't either. It's really deep in the middle and lots of boulders. I'm gonna walk around this rock. All right, this looks way better over here. Okay. This cold water feels good on the feet. But definitely deeper than it looks. A lot of spots. Should be a trail around here somewhere. There we go. All right, so I should be about 2 miles from the lean-to now, and this is quite easy compared to what I was just doing. And I'm not gonna lie, my left knee hurts a lot. I've got a bad left knee, injured it many years ago. So all of this weird, awkward footing and stepping over blowdowns, crawling under blowdowns, and tripping over sticks, it's all made it pretty sore. So I welcome this road walk. This is supposedly a trail, but most definitely a road. It was at one time. Yeah, it's about, what time is it? It's 2:30, so I'm making good time today, considering the terrain I've had to navigate through. Whew. What a day. It's only 3:09 and I'm here at Wassataquoik lean-to, which is very nice, but I'm not really feeling like I'm ready to stop yet. It's pretty early. So I think I might make my push out to Lunksoos. Make the final push here. And if I don't make it all that way, I could bivvy somewhere, but I'm just not feeling like I'm ready to stop for the day, so I'm gonna try to put some more miles behind me. Fording the Wassataquoik Stream again. Oh. This looks a lot easier than last time. I definitely have like a blister right on the bottom of my right foot. Now, before I get out of the water here. Okay. Cool. And it's evident that very few people walk this trail as well. Now, one thing that kept Donn Fendler going was the thought that right around the next corner, right around the bend, he said he expected he might find a camp or a cabin. And You know, that honestly, as simple as it sounds, is enough to keep you going in that situation, I think. And he really wanted to get home to his parents. Family and loved ones are a huge motivator, especially when you're in a dire situation. And just a little spark of hope is all you need sometimes to pull you through. Alright, the International AT continues that way. I am going this way. This is the old keep path, and it looks like it's been quite some time since anyone has gone down it. Doesn't look like it's currently still in use, so let's see what it's like. Well, it's pretty well grown in some places. Great. Had to throw this swamp at me at the end. Ooh, lucky I have this root or tree limb, whatever, that I'm walking across. Because I tried walking in the muck and I was sinking, and that suction was gonna rip my shoe right off of my foot. And don't want to lose them at this stage of the game. Oh my God. Whoo! some very nice camp counselors just paddled me across, which is great because it was a very mucky, deep part of the river. Made it. Well, what a trip. I'm sure as I take some time to digest everything and reflect, I'll have a little more to talk about. But that was a real gnarly last push today, and definitely got pretty difficult towards the end there. Yeah, one thing I screwed up on was the whole crossing of the river thing, and not really having a solid plan for that. I mean, my plan was to try and swim across it, and you know, I think I could do that, but as I was taking my first couple steps into the river, it was a really muddy, mucky, deep section. It's not to say that, you know, if I really had to, I could go downstream or whatever and find a better place to cross, but I was lucky and there were some people across there with a canoe, and just like Donn Fendler saw, and they gave me a ride across. So I don't know, it's kind of a fitting end to the journey, if you ask me. I guess it was meant to be. Things work out, you know, one way or another, they work out.